Have you heard the news? Riot Games is breaking people's computers. Vanguard was turned into malware. It is illegally tampering with people's drivers. Major media are all reporting this case. Riot has no idea what to do about the situation. And worst of all, it was all made up. It is just not true, and it is funny how everyone became an expert on anti-cheat overnight. So, yesterday was hilarious, to say the least. Because Riot revealed a new update for Vanguard that was proven to be extremely effective against the highest levels of cheating. Specifically, we are talking about cheaters that spend thousands of dollars on hardware and software to make it work. Yes, these people do exist, and it gives you context for why buying power in gacha games is so popular. At least there you are doing it legally. Anyway, the news didn't come from Riot directly. We first learned about it after the cheaters started finding out. Today's Vanguard anti-cheat update blocked the majority of DMA firmwares using SATA or NVMe. VGK suddenly triggered a memory management unit restart warning in-game, after which the DMA firmware becomes completely unusable, even without the game running or after uninstalling Vanguard. Only fix is to full OS reinstall. It is using memory management unit to create read blocks, which permanently breaks the majority of almost all SATA or NVMe firmware once triggered. Even the advanced H2 board got affected. Now, if you have no idea what's being talked about here, it sure sounds like Riot is breaking someone's hardware, right? I mean, the report says that it was left completely unusable, and that even advanced boards were affected, and boards are hardware, right? So clearly, it bricked someone's computer. Which sounds very illegal. Imagine a company having so much power that they can short-circuit your own computer under your nose. On top of which, the error screens came out. If Vanguard detects a cheating DMA device on your computer, it would launch a blue screen that fake blue screens your computer with funny messages. Expectations incorrectly configured. Cheat state of undetected is incompatible with the current account state of banned. If the issue persists, consider contacting your local cheat developer for a refund, which is followed to a link to WikiHow. How to back out of an online purchase. Or there was the message of Vanguard has encountered an error and must close. Game does not currently support story mode setting in online play. If the cheating issue persists, an easier hobby can be loaded at runtime, with a link to reddit/r/bottlecap collecting. Of course, this sparked a lot of outrage, on top of which what also didn't help was Riot's official response. Congrats the owners on brand new $6,000 paperweights. And that, my friends, that was the mistake. Congrats to the soon-to-be owners of brand new class action! So Vanguard is officially a malware now, huh? 100% expecting class action lawsuit sooner or later. You are proud that Vanguard is breaking people's systems? Wait, you can break PCs on command via your anti-cheat? I don't think breaking someone's system is something that a legitimate company should be doing. Are you breaking PCs? Breaking PCs is vile. I don't support cheating, but this should be illegal. So the anti-cheat just permanently breaks your SSD firmware? Can someone clarify? Does this break cheating devices or can it break my PC? And then the journalists came. Riot Games has reportedly rendered the computers of users completely useless. Riot Games have bricked $6,000 of DMA cheating devices. The cheating hardware is effectively bricked on PCs. Valorant's anti-cheat software Vanguard has rendered thousands of computers unusable by crashing them. Now, if you don't check for facts, what the f is a journalist's job? Even funnier, did nobody check for the origins of the error screens? It was an April Fool's that was made by a VFX artist. It is all fake. So let's break down what actually happened, okay? Now, for context, I do have some experience with backend development. I am not coming at this as someone who just plays a lot of video games and therefore I know a lot of things. No, in order to actually learn about the topics I am actually talking about, I started making my own video game about 4 years ago, where I learned game dev from absolute scratch, with the only goal really being to learn, on top of which I also picked up some extra experience using today's sponsor, You're not a machine, you're a human, a master of your own fate. So why don't you master the machine with the help of today's sponsor? This video is sponsored by boot.dev. There is a good chance that occasionally you might get baited by someone who made something themselves, which then makes you also want to make your own thing. But what stands in your way is skill issues. And well, if that obstacle is coding skills, we are fixing that. You see, boot.dev is one of the best ways to learn coding, as well as start creating your own things. And so straight away you'll learn how to make your own project using Python. But do not worry, because you can also choose to learn other languages such as C or Go. With the best part being that we are not learning how to code by sitting through lectures or tutorials. No, we are given a proper hands-on experience by crawling through dungeons, slaying monsters, collecting loot, and earning experience, making the entire experience fun. To help with the onboarding, there is a free demo available, with a 30-day no questions asked refund policy. And once you crawl through enough crypts and slay enough beasts, who knows, maybe you too can become a backend developer, which according to the charts is still one of the highest paying jobs in the industry. Not to mention, it is mostly remote work. So don't let your fate slip away. Go to boot.dev and use my code Necrit to get 25% off of your first year, and join the ever-expanding community that is fighting raid bosses together through code. So back to what actually happened with Vanguard. The entire Breaking PC Smith was entirely made up, and it came out of the viral post. The same one that Riot directly replied to, which kinda supported it. People simply didn't understand what the post was saying, and it surely sounded like Riot was breaking hardware. And so spoiler alert, they are not. Instead, they are using the simplest protection method imaginable. But the people who buy the cheats have no idea how they work, and so, of course, you can't ask them to try and figure out what Riot did. And what did Riot do? They ticked a hidden checkbox in the Windows settings. Now this is what I call a brick. That is not even close. To be more specific, if you feel any kind of empathy for the cheaters, just know that the latest update on Vanguard is aiming to fight this. This is what a DMA device used for cheating looks like. And it costs about $6,000. Yes, this is what people do to their PCs to actually cheat. And if you actually read the viral report, you can notice that Riot blocked the majority of DMA firmware, meaning they are talking about software, and they blocked it by shutting down the ports, such as SATA or NVMe. To really explain this like you are a 5-year-old, when a game is running on a server, for example, Valorant, in order for the server to communicate with your PC, it needs to write something to the PC's memory. For example, in order for your computer to render the models of the enemies, it needs to know where those enemies are, which is why the server has to technically write down the location of the enemy. Now, under normal circumstances, this kind of memory is only accessible by normal users. For example, your CPU, your GPU, SSDs, stuff like that. But what happens if you get access to this memory before the rest of the computer does? What if you get access to the information that tells you where the enemy technically is? What if normally that information would be used for rendering graphics? And what if you can use the data to render the enemy before you render the walls? Yes, we are talking about a good old wall hack. That is what this DMA actually does. Because DMA stands for Direct Memory Access. In other words, you strap this thing to your computer so you can intercept the memory. Now, does that mean that DMAs are illegal because they are intercepting data? No, in fact, you may be technically using DMAs right now. It's just totally different kinds of DMAs that don't leech off of your GPU. For example, if you use a capture card, that is a DMA that is intercepting your output. Or if you have a high-power networking card, that can intercept your data technically. And so there are seas of similar devices. But the twist is that when these DMAs are used for illegal things, well, that's when you are giving the company some legal leverage. And so, is this Riot's shield to do illegal activity on your PC? Well, no, because they are not doing illegal activities. That's what makes all the class action claims so hilarious. So, to simplify this as much as possible, what Vanguard does is that it can detect if a DMA is intercepting the data. And if that happens, it simply tells Windows, hey, we can't run because something is running on this machine and it is eating our memory. After which it asks, hey, can you shut this off so we can actually run? After which, Windows does it. And that is it. In other words, what you just witnessed was completely legal. This is the same thing that Windows does when it changes your screen resolution when you change in-game options. Or how Windows is enabling and disabling your cameras or microphones when you launch an OBS, for example. This is very normal stuff that Windows does. The only difference here is that here they are doing it on a kernel level, which means that Windows is disabling something on a little bit of a higher level. But it is still not something that would be fully inaccessible. Which also means that the only thing the cheaters had to do was to re-enable the port for it to work again. If they had done that, it would be fixed. And so after learning about all of this, you can now notice there was never any bricking mentioned anywhere. The bricking of PCs came completely out of nowhere. But it was mentioned that the only way to fix the DMAs would be to reinstall Windows. No shit that worked if the thing that was blocking you was a disabled port. And so that is pretty much what happened. The truth is that Riot was never in any legal danger. That's why they didn't really do anything and kinda laughed in the background. And so nobody really feared for their position of a job at Riot, I guess. Because all they did was clean, and they didn't actually do any of the horrible things that people think they did. And it was only after people started really freaking out that Riot came out and gave out an official answer. And they confirmed exactly what I just mentioned. And to be extra smug about it, they also gave the cheaters a small guide on how to re-enable their device. Because again, the devices worked the entire time. They didn't even do anything with the drivers. They just ticked off one hidden box. I mean, the entire post is very much hilarious. I am affected by this. How do I fix it? To continue cheating in other titles with this device, you may simply disable IOMMU in BIOS in the same place you enabled it. Of course, you still won't be able to play our games with these cheat devices enabled. Why did Riot joke about bricking PCs? We didn't. The paperweight comment was about Valorant cheat devices that no longer work in Valorant. No hardware is being damaged and no other functionalities are impacted. And so, all of this really just stems from the fact that Vanguard may have a little bit of an iffy reputation. And that is because we are talking about a kernel-level anti-cheat. Now, the truth is that if you play any kind of a bigger game, you already have a kernel-level anti-cheat on your computer. You just don't know about it. And according to the stats that Riot gave us, right now, Vanguard is one of the most powerful anti-cheats out there. It managed to eradicate 99% of all bots in League of Legends. Like really, look at this graph. The WoW community would kill for something like this. And cheating and scripting overall went down by more than 85%. And it dropped below 1% for the first time in 4 years. That's why, while everyone was angry at Riot throughout this drama, the Escape from Tarkov fanbase was crying in a corner. But alas, Vanguard is still successful. People who know how it works agree that it is a necessary evil. And so if you are worried about your own privacy, or about Riot even accidentally breaking your own computer, do not worry, your PC is completely fine. Because it doesn't look like this. And if it does look like this, then you have bigger problems to deal with.